In Washington, D.C., ruthless, fanatic violence erupted in the halls of Congress. 3 men and a woman believed to be members of the Puerto Rican nationalist gang that in November 1950 attempted the assassination of President Truman opened fire from the visitors' gallery of the House of Representatives. 5 congressmen were hit: Ben F. Jensen of Iowa, Clifford Davis of Tennessee, Kenneth Roberts of Alabama, George H. Fallon of Maryland, and Albert Bentley of Michigan, who was seriously injured. Observers noted the attack came as the Inter-American Conference opened in Venezuela, and it suggested the motive may have been to arouse anti-United States feeling in Latin America through an act of apparently blind violence carefully calculated to inflame America's relations with her neighbors. Estimates of the numbers of shots fired range from 15 to 30, and each bullet hole found is a grim reminder to those who were present of the terrible surprise attack. The gang, seized by shocked bystanders as they emptied their guns, was held at police headquarters as a widespread search was launched for others who shared in the plot. To Irving Forrest, Rafael Miranda, Mrs. Lolita Lebron, Andre Cordero, the gun wielders, and to their accomplices goes the evil distinction of having perpetrated a criminal outrage almost unique in America's history. Wanton violence that shocked and stirred the nation and did only harm to the cause of the Puerto Rican people. Ready for its first flight, the Navy's newest flying boat, the Trade Wind, first of its type, powered by turboprop engines, stands poised at the edge of San Diego Bay. The streamlined hull slips smoothly into the water and she's ready for takeoff. It's a smooth first flight for the 80-ton craft, which boasts a top speed of well over 350 miles an hour and a cargo capacity unusually large. How large? One of the Navy's secrets. Planned for trans-Pacific service, it's the first flying boat to enter service since the war. Vivid memories of guerrilla warfare are aroused with the repatriation of 1,251 Greeks to their homeland. Taken prisoner by the Reds and shunted to Iron Curtain countries, where some have been held as long as 4 years. Many of them have been given up for lost by their families, and in many cases the reunion seems almost miraculous. There is no age limit for these pathetic victims of an undeclared war that rent Greece for 3 years. Civilians and soldiers alike, ranging in age from 6 years to 90, they again know the meaning of freedom and the welcome of their families. A mother's son has come home. Sultan Sidi Ben Arafa of Morocco is greeted by Governor Guillaume on his arrival in Casablanca, first stop of a 15-day journey that will carry him to all principal cities of the French colony. Political unrest since his appointment as the spiritual head of the nation has prompted him to make himself known to the countless tribes within his domain. With all the pomp of an Arab potentate, he rides through the streets of Casablanca with elaborate precautions for his safety taken by the French military authorities. His is the task of bringing turbulent tribesmen to accept continued rule by France. With an eye toward Arctic defenses, the Army Quartermaster Corps gives the first public demonstration of its cold bar suit. Made of an elastic foam-like material, the suit is protected from damage by an outer standard field suit. Under the eyes of supervising officers, the outfit is put to the test as the group go overboard in ice-cold water. Even though some water may come into contact with the soldier's body, the cold bar offers such insulation that natural body heat takes care of any danger of freezing. The answer to lessons learned in Korea. At Vero Beach, Florida, the Brooklyn Dodgers line up for inspection by their new manager, Walter Alston. A minor league veteran, he's a tyro in the majors, but things look bright at the start with the return from service of ace pitcher Don Newcomb, enthusiastically hailed by teammates. Brooklyn's new pitching coach, Ted Lyons, takes a group of rookie hurlers in hand. 19 pitchers turned out for practice, among them the club's only 20-game winner, Carl Erskine, and Russ Meyer. Last year, pitching was the only soft spot. With the booming bats of Hodges, Campanella, Snyder, and Perillo ready, the Dodgers and manager Alston are pointing for another World Series. Across the country, there's one baseball man who knows what the Dodgers can do, but doesn't much care. Recognize him? Who else but Charlie Dressen, now manager of the Oakland Oaks in the Pacific Coast League, and looking forward to a great season. The National League's top manager last year, he's planning a similar success here for 54. Does he miss the majors? Doesn't act like it. In case there are any spare parts missing from your refrigerator, washing machine, or Junior's electric train, you might find them at the Micro Midget Track. The devotees of the dwarf racers are off to a low-slung start in their miniature motors. To qualify for the newest speed trial, the cars can't be higher than 34 inches and 5 feet long and can be built for as little as $300. The speed, a mere mile a minute, but that's plenty when you're as close to the ground as these drivers are. Whoops, there goes one, but no harm done. Accidents are plenty, casualties few. Low and light, they stay right side up. They're fun to drive, and competition is strictly for laughs. There's no prize unless you pick up a souvenir crossing the finish.
History turns its most ominous page far out in mid-Pacific, where in the Eniwetok Atoll, the world's most awesome weapon is readied for detonation. The pictures you are about to see have been released by the Department of Defense under presidential order. Here on Illujalab Island, the cab or housing for the first hydrogen bomb takes shape after months of preparation. In this building, the cataclysmic force of the H-bomb will be released. Working as a task force team, the Army, Navy, and Air Force work against time to prepare the installations for M-hour under the supervision of scientists who have labored for years to develop the thermonuclear weapon. Illujalab, the shot island is almost ready for the sacrifice. With final preparations almost complete, jeeps with workers leave the island, which is connected with two others by a plywood tube. Filled with helium, it houses the hundreds of instruments which will record the explosion data, which is the prime objective of the test. On board the Estes, flagship of the task force, officers go over final details around a chart of the affected atoll, which spans a distance of 25 miles. Here is the very heart and nerve center of Operation Ivy, as the thermonuclear test is known. Under the direction of General Clarkson, Task Force Commander, M-hour approaches with terrifying rapidity.
Turn away. Do not remove goggles or face burst until 10 seconds after the first light.
Minus 15 seconds. Minus 10 seconds. 9er, 8, 7, 6, 5er, 4, 3, 2, 1, T0.
The ball of fire is 3 miles across as it shatters both land and sea. The shock wave races 35 miles and reaches the control ship with force enough to jar the solidly mounted camera. In seconds, the fireball erupts into a geyser that towers 25 miles into the stratosphere, spreading into a 100-mile wide mushroom cloud. Rising with the cloud are millions of cubic feet of radioactive ash, a virulent byproduct of the fusion bomb that will shower down over the area in approximately 1 hour. Helicopters have a narrow margin of safety to flit across the blast zone and report back. Still unknown is the effect of the explosion on the atoll.
2-6 approaching ground zero. Coming up on Bogon. The detection station on Bogon appears to be in good shape. No visible sign of plywood tube. All test islands seem to be swept clean. Ugilab is completely gone. Nothing there but water, and what appears to be a deep crater.
With its force measured in megatons, millions of tons of TNT, the power of the thermonuclear bomb is almost inconceivable, except in direct comparison with the familiar. Here again is the firing of the first, relatively small H-bomb. Again, we are in the control room. Again, the emotionless count tolls the seconds to time zero of the second era, the thermonuclear era of the atomic age. Again, the fireball. Now, for dramatic effect, we superimpose it on the skyline of New York. The heart of the metropolis would be instantaneously transformed into an inferno, while shock and heat waves devastated the rest of the city. Currently, scientists see no limit on the potential power of the fusion bomb, which places an unthinkably destructive weapon in the hands of mankind. Atomic attack in today's world could not be warded off, and such an attack would spell cataclysm. As never before, man holds the seeds of his own doom. Humanity stands at a grim crossroad in the age of the atom. We're off on a holiday with photoplay star fashions, and just off the set of the film Yankee Pasha is blonde Mamie Van Doren wearing a cotton print travel suit, topped off by a handmade Italian straw pixie hat. By train, by bus they come. Ruth Hampton and Kathleen Hughes looking lovely in their holiday fashions. Colleen Miller is all set for happy holiday doings in her colorful new outfit, especially good for California wear. Mara Corday shows up sporting a very slim pooch and a very nice tan, and she'll keep the tan in this black and gold cotton print halter dress. Like all film folk, universal starlets like Ruth Hampton are right in the swim in the newest swim styles. Under the print shirt, she wears puff pants. Cute, yes? How's the water, Ruth? Oh, cold, hmm? Well, go ahead, it's not that cold. Did Mother say not to go near the water? Myrna Hansen looks cool and cute in her holiday getup as Allison Hayes laughed and Karen Cadler Wright put Ruth Hampton's non-sinkable suit to the test. Oh, I knew we'd get Ruth wet, motherly advice notwithstanding. So that's the last laugh.
After 30 years of controversy, a St. Lawrence Seaway bill reaches the White House for presidential signature. A victory for President Eisenhower. The signing is witnessed by Chairman Dondero of the House Public Works Committee, as well as other senators and congressmen who backed the measure. On hand also is Canadian Ambassador Heaney. Canada and the U.S. will join forces in the giant undertaking, linking Lake Ontario with the Gulf of St. Lawrence. The president used 10 pens to sign the bill, presents 9 of them to congressional leaders. Senator Ferguson, who calls the Seaway a symbol of friendship between two good neighbors, points out the route of the project that has been recommended by every American president since Warren Harding. A legislative triumph for President Eisenhower. A 120-millimeter gun is the largest ever mounted on an American tank. The T-43, newest addition to the nation's arsenal of tanks, can maneuver like a Jeep and handles grades like a pleasure car. Increasingly, the Army puts emphasis on speed and mobility on its land battle wagons. Department of Defense pictures give you some idea of its speed. Woman's Home Companion Awards are received in Hollywood by John Wayne and June Allison, two of the film capital's top luminaries. Miss Allison receives her award for her outstanding work in the Glenn Miller story. The distinction comes to the two actors as a result of a poll taken throughout the nation. Women of America render their verdict on the efforts of movie makers and their stars. General and Mrs. Van Fleet are welcomed by President and Mrs. Rhee as they arrive in Seoul. For the General, it is a meeting of old friends. The former 8th Army commander is back in Asia as a special envoy of President Eisenhower to survey the political and military situation. President Rhee's urging of renewed war lends special significance to the visit. General William F. Dean is inducted into the Navy, the Port of Stockton Navy, that is, as the Court of Neptune, convened on the steps of the city's municipal auditorium, bestows a scroll of citation on the man whose heroism in Korean combat and in Red captivity inspired the nation. A smiling King Neptune presents the general with a cap bearing the insignia of Commodore, which carries with it the freedom of the port. Sincere civic honors in a lighter vein for one of America's great soldiers. Don't know what the wild waves are saying, but the gals are talking about the latest thing in swimming attire, a suit with a built-in girdle. All set to look their sleekest and slimmest on sand and surf, so they're all dolled up for an afternoon of play on Long Island Sound at Mamaroneck, New York. Judy, Florence, and June, looking lovely in their stylishly new suits by Surf Togs, are looking forward to a dip in the pool. No water? Well, what do you know? The pool is closed. So Dorothy and Ann will have to settle for a suntan. Judy is wearing a Bloomer Girl number with shirred hips, while in June's suit, the accent is on the winged bra. June and Dorothy play a game of Scrabble to while away a swimless afternoon. Plenty of sun, though. In fact, so much so it gets in June's eyes. A broad-brimmed straw and sunglasses solves that problem. Judy models one now called Seaside, and a closer look at the peekaboo side lacing should provide the tip-off for the name. Seaside for the seashore. Ah, the good old summertime. She poses on the seawall in her schoolgirl romper suit, all set to see and be seen when the season is in the swim. It won't be long now. Ezard Charles hits the comeback trail, setting a stiff training pace in preparation for his June title bout with heavyweight champion Rocky Marciano. Pointing to his more polished ring style and the aggressiveness he's shown in recent fights, his fans say it's a new Ezard Charles going into the ring. Not the fighter who was outpointed to lose the heavyweight crown, but a smooth, clever tiger who isn't fazed by the jinx that's defeated every ex-champ's attempt to regain the title. The Brockton Bummer has history on his side in the ring, as well as the most powerful right hand in the annals of boxing. Other fighters may be nimbler, but the champ's footwork gets him into position for that blockbuster. He's been up against classy boxers before. All it takes is that one punch. And that's the reason Rocky is favored to emerge the winner and still champion. Under the impressive billing of the first international contest of ski rescue, competitors race down the slopes of the French Alps in search of their wounded. Trained in first aid, they are equipped to deal with minor fractures and injuries. Under a complicated point system, they're judged on their care of the wounded, the quality of their emergency treatment, and the speed with which they convey their patient to the nearest doctor over a course almost 2 miles long. Some rescuers choose to pile up points on the quality of treatment, but this is the part where winning counts and speed enters the picture. Along for the ride, the cameraman learns firsthand about the perils of skiing. Faster and faster they're nearing the doctor, and more they're needing him. You remember that fellow back a ways who had his leg in a splint? Well, the leg's okay, but they don't know yet about his neck. "1954 is written in the pages of history. Korea, 3 years of fighting were over. A truce had been signed, and for many American boys, this was their final parade on Korean soil. They were homeward bound, and Miss Liberty welcomed them proudly as they returned. A war was behind them. Long weeks at sea were behind them. Ahead of them, the faces of loved ones and home. The long trail that began at Heartbreak Ridge ended at the foot of a gangplank. There was so much to say, and words were so inadequate, so useless. But the Indochina War continued. The French and their colonial allies, their backs to the wall, fought on with American-supplied arms. In jungle and in valley forts with odd-sounding names like Bien Bien Phu, the long, bitter struggle continued. A clear-cut victory seemed unattainable. Both sides fought on while negotiations were initiated to end the 8-year struggle. Soldiers fought on in Asia and died, while diplomats assembled at the old League of Nations building in Geneva to talk peace. Here, for the first time, Red China's Zhou Enlai confronted the leaders of the West. With the backing of Russia's Molotov, China demanded a high price for peace. After weeks of stalemate, the new French Premier Mendès France and British Foreign Secretary Eden flew back to Geneva with their final terms for settlement. It was Mendès France, 18th French Premier since the war, who had staked his new government on a settlement by a certain date. This was the date. The American Undersecretary of State, Bedell Smith, came only as an observer for his country. A ceasefire agreement was signed by the French and the Viet Minh Communists. The armistice terms placed 12 million people under communist rule, but ended a critical situation that had drained France of 92,000 lives and $8 billion. For the first time in 18 years, the world was formally at peace. Washington, a scene of gunfire in the halls of Congress. Puerto Rican terrorists opened fire from the visitors' gallery. 5 congressmen were hit, one of them seriously injured. The nation was outraged by the attack. Three men and a woman, seized by bystanders, were arrested and later convicted, along with other ringleaders in the plot to overthrow the government. In the United States and in Puerto Rico, members of the terrorist gang were rounded up. Linked to the communists, it is believed their arsenal was supplied by the Reds. Red-dominated Guatemala's representative protested to the UN over the revolt by forces of freedom. Guatemala was backed by Russia, first with weapons, now with words. But U.S. Ambassador Lodge invoked the Monroe Doctrine with this dramatic warning.
Representative of the Soviet Union, stay out of this hemisphere. And don't try to start your plans and your conspiracies over here. Translation.
At the Vatican, scenes of religious pomp and ceremony. 400,000 gathered in the Piazza San Pietro for the elevation of a pope to sainthood. Pius XII led the rites for Pius X, first pope to be made a saint in 242 years. Highest accolade of the church for Giuseppe Sarto, the cobbler's son who rose from humble parish priest to spiritual ruler of 400 million Catholics. He died in 1914, but his great works live on. forever a saint. Canadian Ambassador Heaney looked on at the White House as President Eisenhower signed historic legislation creating the St. Lawrence Seaway, long a dream of men on both sides of the border. A giant undertaking linking Lake Ontario with the Gulf of St. Lawrence, the Seaway project would make it possible for big ships to sail all the way from the Great Lakes to the Atlantic. A 30-year dream became reality. Good neighbors. 1954 was a big year in sports. The mile of the century was run at Vancouver between John Landy of Australia, now leading, and Roger Bannister of England, both of whom had previously broken 4 minutes. Pulse-tingling drama unfolded on the final turn where Bannister overtook Landy and drove on to victory with one last reserve of incredible stamina and will. Both men broke 4 minutes. Sports history was made. 1954, a year of the hurricane. With unintentional humor, weather experts gave them names of girls. But there was no humor in Carol, or Edna, or Hazel, born in the Caribbean, raised up over the Atlantic to lash the North American continent from the Carolinas to Canada. The hurricanes cut a wide swath of destruction across the land, cutting off power, destroying property. Terrific winds and torrential rains accompanied by flash floods that struck without warning. Hundreds lost their lives and property damage soared into the hundreds of millions of dollars. Hurricanes, grim reminders of the untamed forces of nature around us. First pictures of the H-bomb, the world's most awesome weapon of destruction. For dramatic effect, here superimposed over a great metropolis, is the fireball 3 miles across, which would instantaneously turn the city into an inferno. Science sees no limit to the potential power of H-bombs, which place an unthinkable destructive weapon in the hands of mankind. Man must harness its power for good. In Freedom's arsenal, the Scorpion carried a deadly sting of rockets. The Scorpion, biggest, longest-range jet interceptor, packs a wallop of 104 rockets. Mid-air refueling made it possible for our jet bombers to reach any target in the world. The B-36 global bomber, whose ability to carry the atom bomb anywhere on Earth has made it a great weapon for peace, shows its enormous destructive capacities. Every explosion you see came from this one plane's bomb load. In a world divided, weapons of war were potent factors in keeping the peace. A Scorpion dives down through the exhaust trail created by the rockets it just fired. Sabre jets unleash a fiery fury of gelid gasoline napalm bombs. On the diplomatic front, an historic achievement at Paris, where Konrad Adenauer of Germany, John Foster Dulles of the U.S., and Pierre Mendès France signed the 14-nation pact. Upon ratification, a rearmed Germany joins the Defense Alliance for Western Europe. A grateful nation led by President Eisenhower acclaimed Secretary Dulles upon his return. Peace seemed more secure as 1954 became history.